This is the final lecture for summer apple diseases. In this lecture, we will discuss the various management strategies that can be used to prevent summer apple diseases. At the end of the lecture, you should be able to describe the strategies used to manage summer apple diseases, and you should also be able to develop a management program for summer apple diseases for both organic and conventional production systems. In review, summer apple diseases can be divided into two categories: fruit rots and blemishes. The fruit rot diseases we have discussed are bitter rot, black rot, and white rot. We also learned about two blemishes, sooty blotch and fly speck, which are a disease complex, and over 60 fungal species have been identified as causing sooty blotch and fly speck. An integrated approach to managing summer apple diseases is recommended. However, there are no cultivars that are resistant to summer apple diseases. For sooty blotch and fly speck, some varieties are more susceptible than others, but there are no completely resistant varieties. For example, light skin colored apples such as Golden Delicious and Granny Smith are more susceptible to sooty blotch and fly speck than red skinned apples. Because there are no apples resistant to summer apple diseases, cultural practices, fungicides, and best sanitation practices must be used. Organic producers have to rely on cultural practices and best sanitation practices, as there are no highly effective fungicides approved for summer fruit rot control. For fruit rots, fungicides are applied using a calendar spray program, beginning at petal drop and ending just prior to harvest. If you recall, for apple scab, fungicides are applied on a 7 to 10 day schedule. For fruit rots, the interval is increased to 10 to 14 days. However, over the past 3 years, fruit rot incidence has been increasing, most likely due to increased rain events and warmer weather earlier in the spring. As a result, growers have been reducing the interval to 8 to 10 days, especially for high-value crops such as Honeycrisp. A calendar spray program is also used for sooty blotch and fly speck. However, a disease forecasting model is also available. This model can improve fungicide efficiency, and we'll look at the model in a bit more detail. So the model is used to determine when the next fungicide application is made after the petal fall application is made. The main variable in the model is hours of leaf wetness or leaf wetness duration, which is abbreviated as LWD. The other two variables in the model are predicted rain events and the timing of the last fungicide spray application. When you use the model to determine when to apply a fungicide, it is based on the accumulated wetness hours beginning approximately 10 days after petal fall, which usually corresponds to the timing for the second cover spray application. A LWD of 175 is predictive of an infection event. Therefore, once the accumulated LWD reaches 175, a fungicide should be applied. Similar to the apple scab and fire blight predictive models that we discussed, the sooty blotch and fly speck model is available through NUA for Ohio producers. For this model, you first need to enter the location of the orchard and the predictive petal date fall for McIntosh apples. If petal fall has already passed, then a grower can enter the date of the most recent fungicide application they made. The output of the model is shown here and is color-coded. So yellow represents a moderate amount of risk. Low risk is represented by green, and high risk is represented by red. So in Worcester on June 3rd of 2019, right here, the orchard was 27 days post petal drop, and the accumulated LWD in hours was 156. Based on the model, an infection event will occur at 175 LWD, so at 156 the risk is moderate, and hence the color is yellow. When risk is moderate, the predicted LWD and rainfall for the next 3 to 5 days should be considered. So moving out from here, you want to look at the next 3 to 5 days. If LDW of greater than 175 is predicted, and rain is also predicted in this 3 to 5 day period, a grower should consider making a fungicide application as soon as possible. So that's the case with this prediction here, is that 3 to 5 days out will be at or over 175 LWD. After the first application is applied, the warning system recommends returning to a regular 14-day spray interval for the rest of the season. This model can delay the second cover spray by up to 6 weeks, depending on the variety of the apple, which corresponds to about 3 to 4 less fungicide applications. There are some biological and technical challenges that can reduce the effectiveness of the model. One is that sooty blotch and fly speck are fungal complexes. Therefore, not all of the fungi are going to initiate an infection at the same time or under the same environmental conditions, remembering that infections can occur over a wide range of temperatures. A second challenge is that the model does not factor in summer fruit rot diseases. Therefore, delaying the first post-petal drop fungicide application based on the sooty blotch and fly speck risk may increase the risk of fruit rot infections, since fruit rots are managed simultaneously with sooty blotch and fly speck. A third challenge is the sensitivity and reliability of the sensors that are used to detect leaf wetness. Sensors that are collecting data in real time are more reliable than those that collect data at specific times, such as dusk and dawn. And the availability of more sensitive and accurate sensors is expanding. Along the same lines, the location of the sensors in the orchard is important, and it can be challenging to find a location that represents the tree canopy topography of the various varieties or represents the production method. For example, the location of a sensor will be different for a trellis tree compared to that of a staked or standalone tree. The location of the weather station can also influence the accuracy of the amount of rainfall. Ideally, a weather station should be located in the orchard or within a mile of the orchard, although the weather can even vary a mile away from that point. In northeastern Ohio, where there is a large concentration of orchards and weather stations, growers can make prediction comparisons using data from several weather stations to overcome this particular challenge. There are several cultural practices that can be implemented to minimize conditions that favor fungal fruit infections. Annual pruning of the tree and or lateral training of the limbs for trellis trees will increase the flow of air flow through the canopy and orchard, allowing the leaves and fruit to dry quickly. Thinning fruit in the early summer will reduce stress on the tree and will also increase air flow through the canopy. Cultural practices that reduce tree stress are also important, as stressed trees are more prone to fungal infections. Winter protection of tree trunks is very important for managing black rot and white rot. If you remember, both of these diseases have a canker phase. Cold injury can cause trunk splitting and crown injury, making the trees more susceptible to infections. Winter sun scald or southwest injury occurs when the trunks heat up during a sunny day, followed by a rapid drop in temperature at dusk. Southwest injury is very common in Ohio, and honeycrisp are very susceptible to southwest injury. Painting the trunks and branches white or putting white plastic around the trunks will help reduce winter injury and reduce white rot and black rot infections in the spring. For sooty blotch and fly speck, the removal of reservoir host species, especially brambles and wild pear, from around the orchard will reduce the amount of primary inoculum entering the orchard in the spring. For traditional orchards where semi or dwarf trees are not planted, the removal of overgrown apple trees is also recommended, since the Thyrothecia and Pycnothyria can overwinter on apple twigs and branches. It is also harder to get good spray penetration into the canopy of overgrown trees. For fruit rots, sanitation practices that reduce inoculum levels should be implemented. For organic producers, sanitation practices are the primary means of control of summer fruit rots. Cankers, dead branches, twigs, and fire blight strikes serve as inoculum sources and should be pruned out, and the dead wood should be burned or put in the trash. Cankers should be cut out at least 15 inches below the basal end of the canker. The removal of mummified fruit, especially for black rot and bitter rot, is recommended but not very practical. Some varieties are more prone to forming mummies than other varieties. For example, Cortland apples are very prone to forming black rot mummies, while Honeycrisp is very prone to forming bitter rot mummies, as shown in this image. At the very minimum, dropping the mummies to the ground in the fall or early spring before bud break is recommended. As a summary, I put together a table with the management practices that can be integrated to manage summer apple diseases. This is an important slide to remember. This concludes our lectures on summer apple diseases.